Hello, this is Dr. White from George Mason University. In this video, we're going to learn how to create basic graphs in R. We will create graphs with a function called qplot. First, let's quickly refresh our memory about functions. Remember that functions are reusable bits of code that take some inputs and return an output. Before we can use a function, it must be defined, which is the process of writing down that reusable piece of code and assigning it to some name. We will also specify all the inputs that the function will accept, which we call parameters. Then, when we want to use a function, we supply it with some inputs, and it returns an output. When we use a function like this, as in the imaginary example on this slide, we say that we are calling the function. To call the function, we write the name of the function, which here is sum_function, followed by brackets. The inputs to the function go inside the brackets. Each of the parameters needs to receive a piece of data. These data inputs we call arguments. Fortunately for us, there are many pre-existing functions in R for creating graphs, so we do not need to define our own. In this video, we're going to learn about a function called qplot. The qplot function has already been defined for us. Somebody else has already written a piece of reusable code which will create a graph. All we have to do is call the qplot function and pass the correct arguments to it. This is how we do so. We write the name of the function, which is just qplot, followed by those brackets. The arguments to the function go inside the brackets. And this is the output that we get from running this example. This is a type of graph known as a scatter plot. Each point represents an observation plotted at its value of the x-axis and y-axis variables. But how does R know how to do this? If you compare the code and the graph, you might be able to see how each of the inputs has affected the output. In our code, we said that the x parameter equals something called height, and in the graph we see that height has been plotted on the x-axis. Similarly, the y-axis is called mass. But where did height and mass come from? The clue is in the argument that we pass to the final parameter, which is named data. We have said that data equals Star Wars. It turns out that Star Wars is a variable that contains a table of data. Height and mass are two columns from this dataset. So when you say x equals height and y equals mass, the qplot function knows to look for those columns in the dataset. And because we have two columns of numbers, qplot decided that the best type of graph for this data would be a scatterplot.